Hi, this is Paul Williams. I was just giving you a call back.
Yeah, this is Shirley. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So what I want to do is, I got my notebooks and everything out. I want to go all the way back to the beginning, and the beginning is that this would have been about the time, I guess, that your brother was alive.
No, my brother. She did all this after my brother. Well, she did all this. My brother had been dead for years when she started embezzling money and doing all this.
But what I want to talk about is about the time when you first found out that Carol Boyd existed on the face of the earth. I mean, about how long ago?
Yeah.
About how long ago was that?
Oh, Lord. Wesley's been dead 26 years, and they've been married about 29 years, maybe.
Okay. And then fast forwarding from that point in time, initially, when was the first time that you felt or you knew something was wrong, that something per se with Carol Boyd, with what she was doing as a person, something was
Oh, that was in probably 2005. My husband passed away in 2004, and we had a condo, and it was paid for, so I decided to sell it and go to Florida. I'd been here a year, and that was in 2005. But I had a house that I had bought for my mother that belonged to my grandmother, and she financed that house for me. And so my husband passed away, and I didn't have it paid for, and I wanted to get it off my hands because it was going to have more work than what I'd done. So I left all of that up to her.
And when you and let me stop you there a minute. So you had a house, and that house was in Dalton, Georgia?
No, my house that she beat me out of was in Tunnel Hill, a little house over there by the tunnels.
Okay. And do you recall the address on that?
Yeah, that was 101 Main Street.
Main Street. Okay. And so basically what happened, and how did it come about that you said, I think I'll go to Carol Boyd to sell this home? I mean, did you know that she was a broker, or, I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, my mother was wanting to get rid of some property, and I wanted my grandmother's house. And Carolyn and my brother had lived there for a short time when my niece was small, just a baby. Well,
and your niece, your niece, that would be Crystal. Very good.
That's her, the oldest child. That's the one that Carolyn's got this house that she's living in. She has it in Crystal's name. She didn't have anything in her name. Carolyn didn't. She put it in somebody else's name. Everything. But anyway, Carolyn said, well, I'll give you a loan, through her company. So she worked it out where she'd get me the loan to buy that house, which is like, I think my mother just charged me like $27,000 or something. It's a small house. And we were going to start buying rental property. But anyway, my husband passed away, and then I lived here for a year in Dalton, and I sold my condo and went to Florida. But in the meantime, she said, yeah, I think it'd be a good idea for you to go to Florida. I think you need to, and, she was encouraging me. Well, she never had done me dirty, and I stayed in speaking terms with her because of my niece, because my mother and sisters couldn't get along with her. They just despised her because they had tried to get Crystal away from her and gone to court. And the reason they didn't get her was her caseworker. This is what Carolyn told me. Her caseworker said, well, I saw the grandmother and the aunts there and all their finery and everything, and I just changed my mind. Now, that's what Carolyn told me. Well, anyway, she made me a loan, got me a loan approved to buy that little house through Regions Bank, I believe. And so I was getting ready to go to Florida, and I didn't know who to leave the house in care of, to rent it out or sell it or own a finance and whatever. So I left my payment book with her at her office. She was going to collect the rent or the house payment, whichever came first, and mail it in on the loan. Well, I kept getting letters from Regions Bank, and I'd call her. She said, oh, that's all right. Just throw it away. I've taken care of that. She wasn't making the payments. So the little lady that bought the house called me in Florida, and she said, Shirley, what are you and Carolyn trying to do to me? I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And the lady lost the house. And so I don't know who. They sold it in front of the courthouse later, and I don't know who owns the house. I have no idea who's in that house. But I just had to chalk it up this experience. Like I said, I had no money to fight her. And then my daughter came up for a visit, and I had her go look at the records at the courthouse, and there was nothing on file in that house at 101 Main Street, Tunnel Hill. And so she beat me out of that. And I don't know if she turned around and, no, they sold it in front of the courthouse. That's when I saw that you don't fool with her. Then through the grapevine, I'd heard she'd sold a house to a cousin of hers that had 2 mortgages on it, and they didn't even know it. And I do know that she had this young girl that would come out and do her appraisals and would appraise your homes. Yeah, and she would appraise your property much more than what it was worth, so that, they'd get a loan for that much money. Lots more money, whoever wanted to buy it. And so that girl told us that she was getting $300 a pop every time she'd go out and praise a place for Carolyn.
Right.
It was a young girl, Stephanie Davenport, from over at Chatsworth.
Okay.
But
anyway, I want to talk a little bit about now. We had talked earlier, and you said that you talked about Carol Boyd kind of growing up, in abject poverty over in the Slab Town and such. I believe you said Cottonwood Hill Road or something like that. How did you come to that information, or is it just simply that Dalton was really just such a small, close-knit community that you ask around and you just find out?
Oh, no, that's in Tunnel Hill. Slab Town is on Cottonwood.
Right, Tunnel Hill. I'm sorry.
And my brother married her, and we just didn't understand it. I couldn't understand why I even went with her. We were shocked.
Right.
And, then we found out about the whole crowd, and he didn't live with her long. About 8 of them. The sisters were always having children, and one of the girls that Carolyn's raising is a redheaded daughter, and it was one of her sisters. She said she adopted her, which I guess the sister just gave her to her. And if you go on Carolyn's Facebook and see how they live, you can go on her Facebook and see how she lives. And the pictures of the Austin Healy, she bought that in 2009. It said, and they're in front of a house that they're supposed to be buying, and he has a wonderful motorcycle.
That's the house they have now.
Well, some of the pictures are in front of the big white house that she has now that's in foreclosure, but a picture of herself and Earl are in front of another 2-story house on the waterfront they're talking about buying. You can just go on her Facebook.
And Earl would be her husband, correct?
Earl is her husband. He was
Right.
a fireman here in Dalton. He didn't come from money. But I would say he's right there in on this with her. He knows what's going on.
I want to, and because I'm taking all these notes, I want to step back a little bit. You spoke earlier, excuse me, about a situation wherein Carol owned a motel. Can you walk me back through this again?
Okay. It was Quality Inn Motel up on the hill right there at the Rocky Face exit. Rocky Face is a little area between Dalton and Tunnel Hill.
Right.
And she said that she owned it. She said that she owned it. And that she had something up in Gatlinburg. I don't know. They're supposed to have had a motel somewhere in Gatlinburg, but I do know that's how she got acquainted with that Tommy. Tommy, he was her business associate in Professional Home Mortgage. He had a dumpster service. And I'm afraid she's mixed up into something deep.
She was where her sisters were prostitutes.
Yeah.
Her cousin and the sister, I was with Carolyn up there. I cleaned rooms
my daughter cleaned a few rooms up there for Carolyn at that motel. But I think she let her work 2 or 3 times. I don't know. But her sisters and a cousin of Carolyn's were prostituting up there. And this dumpster service at this Tommy, if I could just think of his last name. My daughter's in there pulling it up.
Okay.
She was married to a Tommy Pravette, but this is not him. This guy, he didn't know what was going on. He was just innocent. But this is another Tommy. And he's the one that I told you that he outsmarted the FBI one time. He had that dumpster service. And you know what to say about the dumpster services.
Right.
You know.
Money in, money out.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's how she got associated with him. And then after Tommy's son-in-law went to prison for running drugs for him, well, he had a little white Camaro or one of those cars. Yeah, I believe it was a Camaro, another model. She got it from Tommy for her oldest daughter, Crystal, which was my niece.
Okay.
And but I do know that Tommy's wife thought Carolyn and Tommy were having an affair. Now, this is a small town, I'll tell you.
Sure.
This will tell you how small this town is. My dental hygienist was telling me one day, because she cleaned Tommy, whoever he is, his wife's teeth, and she'd been telling her that she thought Tommy and Carolyn were having an affair. So this is a small town.
Sure is.
And but I mean, you'll see that I'm bad to skip around from one thing to another.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I think that's something I'll tell you right then, because if I don't, I forget.
Sure, yes,
And
ma'am.
so go ahead and ask me whatever you want.
So we talked a little bit about the fact that she owned the Quality Inn that was down off the Rocky Face exit, and the fact that at least there was something going on. It was probably prostitution, running drugs in and out of there. I want to take it forward from there. What I want to start talking about is how Carolyn Boyd began to use her daughter as the proxy to obtain credit. You'd mentioned something about a $500,000 loan.
Right. Okay. The house that she's presently living in, I remember, but when she was buying it, she said that she bought it from a local doctor, and she just bought part of the property because he was wanting $1 million for it because he had land there, a lot of land. And so he built a house out from it. He wanted to downsize. So she bought it for $500,000, and I didn't know. I had no idea that it was in Crystal's name until I saw it in the local newspaper where it was going into foreclosure. So it went into foreclosure, and then about a month or so later, I read it again. It was in foreclosure again. But also, Earl had some land going into foreclosure also, just a small piece over there close to Carolyn, plus just a small lot in Dalton in an undesirable neighborhood. So his went into foreclosure. Tommy Rector, R-E-C-T-O-R.
R-E-C-T-O-R. Very good.
Mm-hmm. Now that is he built a big home when they had the mortgage company together. He had a big home over here off of Tibbs Road.
So Carol Boyd and Tommy Rector owned a business together for mortgages?
Uh-huh.
Very good.
Now we think, Rick, are you sure? The twins would know. He comes up with Tommy Rector. That does sound familiar. It is. She went back there. She looked at the computer. But anyway, yeah, they were in cahoots, and she's even told us when all of my dealings was going on with her that she'd have to go back to the office and do something. Said Tommy doesn't know how to do the first thing. He can't close a deal. He can't do this. Well, I didn't figure he could. I mean, he was just there as just as a cohort, just to help her, because he had a crooked mind too. And so I didn't know why she had closed that down. I didn't know what she was doing until I ran into lady that used to be her sidekick, and she did her so dirty that she was telling me some stuff, and I was just taking it all in, you know. Then I ran into her again at the Walmart just a couple of weeks ago, and she's telling me that, yeah, she had moved her office up to the Tunnel Hill exit. And I said, well, why did she move up to that exit up there? Because it's, you know, forsaken. It's not that big an exit. And she said, I don't know. And so when we read on Craigslist, this guy from Pensacola put in there that, you know, where they had just up and moved overnight. So she had an office right here in town by the newspaper office. So that's, you know, she wants to give all those kids. She told me one time, she said, you know, if you want to get back at somebody, you know what the best way to do it is? And I said, no. She said, be prosperous. And she hated my two younger sisters because they were always taking Crystal with them to ride horses, and my dad, you know, she was his livelihood after my brother passed away. She was about 3, and but they were divorced, and so she kept him alive for a few years. But after that, after my dad passed away, she didn't come around. But now, not just because she's my niece, but I'm telling you, she's a good girl, good girl, and she doesn't approve of what her mother does. But that's her mother.
Sure.
You know? And she married a couple of years ago, and she didn't marry till I don't know, in her 30s, because Carolyn was real controlling, and she kept her kids close, you know, and she just like she was afraid to talk to somebody. Carolyn wouldn't let anybody get close to her or her kids. And I tried to get close to Crystal, but she, you know, I knew it was her that was, you know, keeping it. There's no telling what she's told her. And, you know, we've never done anything to her. But
you had described to me an interpersonal event between you and Carol Boyd, wherein you you felt or you thought that Boyd had stolen your checkbook and written checks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. When Crystal was just about 4 or 5 years old, I'd go by her once in a while. You know, I wanted to stay in touch with my baby brother's only child. So I was over there visiting a time or two, and I just set my purse down. Well, I had missed my checkbook one day, and we looked high and low. So my husband at the time, he carried me over to her house, and I wanted my checkbook. And so she handed it to me. And so when she saw that my husband was with me, I think it kind of scared her up, and she handed it to me. And then I had a check. I checked my balance. I was going over everything, and she had written a check for $60-something to a finance company. I went out there and picked that up, and the guys out there told me that she's got the right last name, Crook. Crook was her second husband, and he was a good person.
That's C-O-O-K?
C-R-O-O-K, Crook.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was his son. You went. It is Tommy Rector. That is the right name.
R-E-C-T-O-R.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so Tommy Rector. Now I heard her saying Tommy Rector's son then apparently was married to Carol Boyd at some point in time.
No.
Okay.
No. My daughter went to school with his son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He goes by Tom, Tommy, or Thomas.
Yeah, Tom, Tommy, or Thomas Rector.
Okay.
And anything he deals with or has anything to do with is bad news.
So you went out to a finance company. I'm presuming this is a.
Yeah, I took a check that she had written, used one of my checks to pay one of hers or her mother's bill.
This was a finance company that they had debt with and not you, correct?
No, I didn't deal with them.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, excellent.
But I'll tell you what her mother's deceased now, and her mother was a hard-working little woman. And her mother told me what she had been doing. she had a brother that was at home, and her mother and her brother worked for this cabinet shop at Rocky Face. And they didn't have time to go pay their bills, and Carolyn didn't have to work at that time, so she'd take their money and supposedly go buy money orders for them to pay their bills. And what she was doing was taking that money and somehow making a carbon copy. You know how a money order used to come off on carbon copies? They had a carbon copy.
Yep, I remember.
Okay. She would write the top part for her bill, and on the carbon copy, their receipt, she'd fill it out for whoever she's supposed to pay for them.
Right.
And she'd use the top part for her benefit, but their bills were not getting paid because she was copying it, you know, like laying a piece of paper on top of that carbon copy, that piece of carbon, I guess. And it came up on the bottom part as to where they wanted to put that money to go.
And this was Carolyn's mother had told you this, and
Her brother Jimmy. Now Jimmy did live around Atlanta. I don't know where the boy is. I don't know anything about him. But it's a coincidence. Let me tell you. Wednesday night, my daughter, Wednesday afternoon, late. She was back in the bathroom, and in the floor, she was getting dressed and turned to get her clothes up off the floor. Hurt her knee, and I had to take her to the emergency room. And we were sitting there waiting for her to go back. That was Tuesday night. We were sitting waiting for her to go back, and who comes through one of the doors from the back part of the emergency room but Carolyn Boyd's sister and two nieces. Well, that sister spotted me sitting over there, and she looked like she thought she knew me, you know.
right.
But she never did speak. And I told my daughter, I said, you know, that Carolyn might have been back there in the emergency room somewhere. She may have had a stroke or maybe an anxiety attack or something from all this stuff that's closing in on her. You know, she could have been up there. I don't know who they were there to see.
That's this like as in this past Tuesday or a week ago or?
No, that was this past Tuesday.
Past
this
Tuesday.
Week.
And and do you remember what the sister's name is?
It was Sandra was her name, first name. I don't know who she is now.
Sure, Sandra.
But,
okay.
she used to look like a dog, but they fixed her up. I mean, she was a lot bigger. And
I'll go up there and get tag numbers off of all their cars and send it to him, or throw it now and bring it back.
Oh, you don't want to do that, she said. I mean, because they know my car.
Sure,
She
yeah.
said, you want... Huh?
Oh, I was saying, yeah, I can investigate all these people and track them down on my own. The only reason I even asked that, because what I'm trying to do is create a family tree, you know, who was married to whom. And...
Yeah, she had three sisters, Sandra and Barbara Ann. Barbara Ann was a card. Now, she looked like a tomboy and she'd do anything. And there was another one, but I can't remember her name. There was a younger one. And I know she had a brother named Jimmy, but her parents are dead.
Right.
Oh, she also bought her mother a house over here in Beverly. What is it? Beverly Heights? Beverly, right over here in town, in a nice area. She bought her mother a brick house, or gave her the loan, and her mother didn't have anything.
She didn't even know what to do with the house.
I mean, it went down. It made the neighborhood look bad because, you know, they're the type that didn't take care of anything. But she bought her mother a house, and God, she was putting everybody in her girls. They went to private school over here, and they both had new cars. In fact, they bought my dad's new pickup after he passed away for Crystal. That was my niece. And then the girl Amber, which is her second daughter, which is supposed to be on staff at Boyd Property Preservation, she bought her a new little Volkswagen convertible. And, you know, just always doing, and give them her bank card to go shopping, you name it.
You'd told me that at some point in time, law enforcement had been looking for Carol Boyd, and they finally found her at 3 a.m. Can you elaborate a little on that?
I was just wondering. I'm trying to think back. That's good. That's when she was married to the guy named Crook. She had written some bad checks, I believe. Probably has a rap sheet over here that we don't know about at the jail. where she'd
Right.
been secretly taken in. I think it was bad checks. I'm not sure. But I know one time she rented a typewriter from one of the office supplies here and made out bank statements and showed them to her husband. It looked like the original thing, and showed them to her husband and wouldn't let him know, what she'd done to their bank account, what she'd spent, or she falsified everything. She falsified all their home records and everything. And so,
And on that point though about coming into her house, how precisely did you or did the community find out that the cops had been looking for her and they kicked in the doors around 3 a.m.?
well, I don't know that they kicked in the doors. I
Well,
don't know
yeah.
how they approached.
Right.
But I believe it was her mother. I believe it was her mother that told me about it, because her mother was so dissatisfied and disgusted because they had caught up with Carolyn falsifying those money orders and not
Right.
paying their bills.
Right.
And I ran, and I went, I don't know, I guess I was at the grocery store or something. I ran into her mother, and I always liked her little mother. Now, she can't help what Carolyn did.
Do you recall her mother's first name?
Yeah, Minnie, Minnie.
Just like Minnie Pearl.
Just like
Yeah.
Minnie Mouse or Minnie Pearl.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, excellent. 'Cause this is just helping me chart out, like I say, the family tree,
And her mother's maiden name was Pinson, Pinson, something like that, Pinson.
Okay. And she had then kind of just related to you the fact that Carol had finally been arrested for something, and that they had come in about 3, or they got her, if you will, early in the morning sometime.
Yeah, she just kind of related that to me.
And do you recall approximately the month or the year? Because see, if I can drill that down, what I can do is I can go to a news service outlet, and then I can go through their archives.
That would have been in the middle to late 80s.
Okay.
Maybe. And it might have been in the early 90s.
Okay, excellent.
I think.
That at least lets me drill down a little bit. Over the past period of time, and because really where I came on board in all this was when I began to investigate literally the defraudment of these contractors across multiple states, which is really pretty recently. Over the past 5 years, I mean, did you or your family or anybody have any contact, or was there any gossip or anything that you guys were aware of locally with respect to Boyd, her husband? I believe you'd spoken something about the husband was going to leave her and then didn't end up doing that. I mean, anything like that?
He did leave for a good while, and then he hadn't been back with her too long when they started this up. The only thing, about 4 years ago at my mother's funeral, I was in Florida and just had surgery. I couldn't make it up here, so my sister was describing Carolyn and Earl Boyd and how they were dressed. Of course, my sisters, they know they were fine dressers, and they know and they said no fireman dresses like she had him dressed. No fireman, not on a fireman's story. And talking about his shoes, and, we all knew what they cost and all that kind of stuff. And she came into my mother's viewing. And so that's how. But then somebody had told me about Boyd preservation. I forgot who saw that online and told me to go on there and look. And, I know. My nephew did, because my sister that's in Florida, her daughter has a horse. And when they moved to Florida, they left it over at Carolyn's farm, because my niece has horses. And they're still over there. And so somehow my sister in Florida saw something, and she'd heard about this house Carolyn's in going to be up for foreclosure. So she called a realtor, and the realtor told her, she said, well, we sold them a truck And I remember seeing that truck because my daughter lived down the road from them. And I said, I remember seeing that truck. Well, they bought it from a realtor here, and they did get all the money. Well, and then they gave them a bad check. But I went online and looked up Boyd Property Preservation, and it showed Carolyn Boyd, or Carol Boyd. She's going to be Carol. She switches. And it showed the write-up about her, what a Christian lady she is, the experience she's had in mortgaging and all that type. And now meet our staff. Well, we go down through there, and one of them's her son-in-law, and two of them's her daughters. And the rest of them, one's that old Jerry Leonard. He ran for office because I remember seeing a sign out in front of Carolyn's house, too.
He was running
for office.
He ran for judge, I believe, and my understanding is that he's also a member of not only the Masonic Lodge over in Dalton, but also the Shriners.
Oh, well, that doesn't mean anything.
Well,
right.
The reason I bring that up is because in addition to what people do publicly, when you're a member of the lodge, you can be held accountable at different levels. You know, I'm a member of the lodge.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. I mean, it used to be a sacred kind of a sacred organization, but it's not now, because I was just telling my daughter that came up here just a few weeks ago at my house. We were having, somebody knew of a guy and said, well, he's a member of the Masons. I said, that doesn't mean a thing anymore. Used to, it did, but they've got so many, and whoremongers and all that, and the Shriners.
Would you say it's fair to state that for a period of time when Earl and Carol were out flaunting, that according to the clothes they wore, the vehicles they drove, and the lifestyle that they had, that was not being financed on a fireman's pay?
Absolutely.
And was that spoken of within, say, more than one person within the community? I mean, was this something that was observed by several people?
Everybody watches her. Everybody knows, how can a single parent with 5 or 6 kids have a big $500,000 home with a pool and all that land, and help her daughter, which is my niece, she was a big horse lover, buy horses, and she bought, one year she bought Crystal a black horse for Christmas, and they were going to go on a trip, a cruise or something one time, and to England or somewhere, and she told Carolyn told Crystal, my niece, this is when she was younger, said, well, you can just take one of your horses with us, and ship it. But she lives in a fantasy world, and she's going to do everything she can to get up above anybody that she went to school with, or, well, her mother told me one time that Carolyn and her brother Jimmy were in competition with each other, she thought. But, and he's younger than Carolyn. But I don't think he lives by her. But she sold a house over here to a cousin up the road from where she lives now, but before she bought that big estate. And it was a beautiful place, and it looks like Slab Town now. That's how they take care of things. Carolyn's house, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, even the doctor that sold him the house made the remark a while back after it went into foreclosure, because he was interested in a doctor friend of his coming into town, maybe buying it. And he has to come out by her house that he sold to him. And he said, I can see a lot of work needs to be done to that house. But if you go in on her Facebook and you see a big white 2-story house, that's the one she's in that she gave $500,000 for, or supposedly. And so that's where they're living presently, unless she's moved overnight.
At the end of the day, is it a fair statement to say that based upon your and others' opinions, that many people feel that Carol Boyd has at multiple times in her career been involved in illegal activities? Now, whether that means, for example, in your situation, screwing you out of your home, or the involvements with Tommy Rector, whom you had mentioned had been the target of an FBI investigation. I mean, is that the general consensus down there? You know?
Yeah, I would say, that she and Tommy Rector made fraudulent loans. They had their appraiser, like I said, go out and over-appraise everything. And so the person, could get a big loan. I don't know how that works, but I'd say so.
That's how you look up her Facebook. That's what it's under, and that's her sister's thing.
Yeah. Okay. Her Facebook, Ann told me, is Carol Earl Boyd.
Carol Dash.
Carol Dash Earl Boyd.
Carol Earl Boyd. Okay, very good. I'll definitely go look at that. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and I want to go over all my notes and everything here. I want to establish a good family tree. I want to deeply background the company. And what I'd like to do is give you some time to go ahead and think, you and your daughter, about anything. I want to make sure. Do you have a pen and paper handy?
I sure do.
My email is COO. That's Charlie Oscar at foreclosurepedia.org. That's spelled FORECLOSURE.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, very good. That's my direct email. My direct phone, always on my hip, is 865-719-9903. If you send me an email, I'll respond back immediately, and it'll have all my contact info in there. But what I'd like to really do is drill down pretty deeply on this. I'm gonna reach out to some other media outlets. They have what we call, basically media morgues, and they have, I'm a one-man show up here in the county with one stoplight. That's the reality. But these people are sympathetic to what I investigate. So what I won't do is release your information. What I'll do is reach out and say, hey, I want to find some information about this Crook family, about this Tommy Rector, about so-and-so, and try to get all the information that I can. And then I'd like to, in a day or two, revisit this whole deal and see whether or not anything else came to mind. Or in the meantime, if you guys have other individuals out there whom you can, quietly reach out to and say, hey, what's the dirt on these people? Because we have somebody who's interested in putting them under the courthouse. Then,
I know of one lady that she was buying that house of my grandmother's, and it just so happened she's working in the office now, at the doctor's office, with my daughter. And because my daughter and I were having dinner the other night, and she asked me, says, do you know they call her Pete, do you know I can't even think of her name right now. I said, that name sounds familiar. And we sat there, and I said, oh, no. I said, that's the lady that bought the house. It's supposed to be buying the house from me. And that lost it because Carolyn embezzled the money. And I said, Chrissy, please tell her that what happened, that I didn't have anything to do with it. She said, well, I'm not going to bring it up right now, but if it comes to, if we get close enough to her, I will. But
right. This whole thing kind of just reminds me of, like, down in Savannah, Georgia, I read a huge book, and it was called Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. And albeit I love Georgia, and albeit Savannah, interestingly enough, has more parks per capita than anywhere else in the U.S., it seems that the origination of everything that's interesting like this always seems to originate in Georgia, and it originates from extremely poor people attempting to muscle their way into a level of aristocracy, and and that's not to say that poor people shouldn't aspire to better themselves. What I think it is to say is that there is a system of checks and balances, and if we don't all follow the rules, then the system or society collapses, and it's up to some of us out there, like myself, the lone wolves, to make sure that those checks and balances are implemented.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, Now, Carolyn's children, they all have different daddies, or we don't know who. I mean, Crystal belongs to my brother. Amber, the second one, belongs to the Crook guy. She had a third daughter named Tyler, and I never did think that she belonged to the Crook. But he, she had him believing it, and he paid child support. Then she had twin boys, and that was supposed to belong to her third husband, Tommy Pravette, but everybody says that they wasn't his. And there's another one. There's a little redheaded girl in between that Carolyn is raising, and it was her sister's girl, and she gave her to Carolyn. And I think that's all. I believe that's all with the kids. I was just trying to think,
Sure. Well, let's do this. It's it's getting on in the afternoon. First, I want to thank you and your daughter for being both, brave and courageous and even reaching out and speaking with me. I want to go over all these notes. I want to digest what I've written down and what we've discussed. I want to research.
Well,
Say again.
If you have any questions, feel free to call. I mean, I'm usually always at home. And what Ann and I were discussing a while ago before you called back, you don't know who she's tied in with. I don't know who's backing her. We're just talking.
I think I do. I think she's involved with organized crime. I don't think organized crime in the sense.
And so I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not, but there is known to be, a gang, Mexican cartel in Dalton.
Right.
And I don't know if they have anything to do with money backing her. I don't know. And so I've got to be extra careful, for my life.
I don't, and that's what I said. I don't ever want to place you in harm's way. That's why I'm going to keep predominantly your name off the record unless and until the FBI steps in. But
yeah, they step in, that'll be different,
right. But I don't believe that Boyd is involved with organized crime like you think, like The Godfather, New York, and all that. What I believe she's involved with is what I call the nickel and dime organized crime. The good old boy who ran the bootleg and ran the numbers for a while. They have some money, they spread it around, they loaned it. They loaned it out to Boyd, and this is based upon a lot of information that I have. And what they said was, we don't get our money, we're not taking you to court. What we're going to do is we're going to put your hands over the counter, and we're going to take a hammer, and we're going to break your knuckles. Now, that's a direct quote from one of the sources I've worked with.
I'd like to see her if she doesn't go behind bars. I'd like to see her have to work a job just like everybody else, get out and work hard for what she has and see what it's like and not take money from innocent people that's out there killing themselves to make a living and try to have a little something for their families. That's exactly what she's doing.
Well, she defrauded a fireman right there in the Dalton Fire Department.
Yeah. Well, also, when I was signing papers down at her office before I moved to Florida, she had a plaque on the wall, and she was telling me that she said, I'm the millionaire sales real estate something of the year, like she'd sold so many millions. Yeah, I'm sure she did. She was laundering money. Tommy might have been there just kind of overseeing, and she was the front laundering money for him. But he built that big house here in town, and I'd like to know whatever happened to him. If I run into her used to be sidekick, I'll ask her about Tommy Rector. I'll see where he might be now, because she knew him real well, and she won't know that what I'm doing.
Sure.
Because I don't want her to know. I just act stupid. Well, I am kind of stupid, but I just act.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
To her, because and she told me that she had a little job now. This lady says she's got a little job. She's got a job now, just working the desk at some little old motel around here. I don't know which one it is. If I knew what she drove, I'd drive around and find out. Because I'll tell you what now, she's the woman that could tell you everything if she would. Brenda Helton. And Carolyn's third daughter, Tyler, lives with her. She lives with her because Brenda was more like a mother. Brenda's Brenda and her husband were more like parents to Tyler. And Tyler's got a little girl that's about 2 or 3, and she's never been married. She's never there with them in Donville, in the Donville community. So, and she never did. Brenda was telling me that she never would buy Tyler a new car. She bought all these other kids new cars. That I couldn't understand why she never would buy Tyler one. And I said, I don't know, Brenda. I don't know. But when when I saw Brenda in the Walmart a few weeks ago, I was in one aisle. She went real fast down the other way. I heard, "Hey, Brenda," and my granddaughter was with me. And after I got through talking to her, my granddaughter told me, she said, "I knew what you was doing. I was just trying to find out." And she's the one that told me that they had moved to the Tunnel Hill exit.
Right.
So, but she ran that. She would work the desk at that motel. She would keep Carolyn's kids. She did everything, did all her leg work, just like she just worshipped Carolyn. And Brenda was talking about how dirty she did her. But that's one that could really give you some information. Now, that's the ones FBI needs to get a hold of if they step in and make her talk.
Right.
That was her right arm.
Well, what I'm going to do, like I say now, is I'm going to take next day or so, drill down on all this information. With your permission, then I'll reach back out to you, and because I'm sure I'll have a ton more of questions, and then, hopefully over.
Do I need to pull my records on this house?
I'd appreciate it if you would, because this is more.
I still have all of it.
This is more from the curiosity point of view, but if I can find somebody out there who would represent you for free, I actually have a good law buddy friend of mine down in Florida. Maybe he might step in, and he's a large firm. He has muscle, and so if we could maybe get you made whole, that would be up to you. I don't know if he would do it. I think maybe he would do it. And so I'd like to do that as well. But if for no other reason, so that we could pull all the information we can out of there to also begin to look in multiple directions for more stuff to research.
So this attorney happened to be from the Lake Mary area. Is that his residence, Lake Mary, Florida?
That I don't know precisely where he lives. His name is Matt Weidner.
Matt who?
Weidner. And he's not. He's an individual that I've worked with somewhat tacitly on other things, and I don't know, he may have a full schedule, he may not even be interested, but if nothing else, he may know somebody he can refer, and he may just say, "Hey, I can't help you," I don't know, but if I have the ability to help you, I want to do that as well, because if a crime has been committed, if you've been defrauded, and I don't pretend to be a lawyer, I don't know the law. But when I have questions of that type of nature, I try to reach out to people who do know it. And at your age in life, there are certain compacts, there are certain lines in the sand in society that when those are crossed, I think all of us in society, we need to come together and we need to do what we can to prevent those lines from ever being crossed again,
True. I had a question for you a while ago.
Sure.
When we talked the first time. Why would she have sent this lady in Florida her check to Wells Fargo Bank instead of sending the check to the lady that did the cleaning and all, Why did she send it to the bank? Why did she send a woman's check to the bank? Because, she was telling the lady that it was Wells Fargo Bank, Wells Fargo fault that she didn't get the check. It was no fault of hers.
That's a good question.
That's one of her lies.
My personal opinion is that her representative at Wells Fargo is complicit at best in a criminal action. I fully believe that. I can't prove it yet, but maybe someday I can.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the Wells Fargo Bank here in town, Dalton's made up. The majority now is the Hispanics. The minority is the whites. And the Wells Fargo Bank here, at the main bank and all the branches, I mean, the Hispanics give them all their business.
Right.
They use them. But before you hang up, Ann, my daughter had Brenda help. Now she's on the computer. But no. Brenda, that time.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I didn't know. I heard kind of a bump in the line. Let me do this. Let me get out of here so I can get all these notes put together. And with your permission, I'd like to get a hold of you, like I say, in the next couple of days and follow up.
Yeah. And if someone should be here, we're not talking to anybody in the family. We don't want this to be around.
Sure, not a problem at all. Not a problem at all.
So if anybody should be here, I'll just have to get back with you because I don't want anybody to know. But in the meantime, I'm going to pull the files that I have on that house.
Excellent.
And I can give you a specific date.
Excellent.
And I also noticed where she had signed a check on the internet, I think to this lady in Florida. And she's changed her signature. It's where you can't even read it hardly. And I told my daughter, I said, look at that. I saw her signature, and it doesn't look the same like that.
Well, that's something interesting to note, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, take a note of that because she has changed it.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I really appreciate you and your daughter, and probably in the next.
Well, I appreciate you too. I've always wondered. Is it too late for me to do anything about what she did to me, or is there any way I can get this out? Is there something I can do about it just to get back at her? I have wondered this ever since it's happened to me, and that's why I saved all those files.
Right. That will be a question for a professional. I will definitely get you an answer though on that, ma'am.
Yeah, because statute of limitations is 7 years on everything, but some things it may not be.
I posted a thing on Craigslist, and this letter to beware of Carol Boyd, a.k.a. Carol Brooks,
Yeah.
Carol Smith. I put it on Craigslist it somehow come up under Montgomery, Alabama. But it's in general community, and it was posted November the 19th.
If she'll send me if she'll send me that link to my email, then I'll go ahead and pull it. I'll immediately start.
I've got it on my email. Mom, I don't have an email.
Sure.
But I do have that on my email.
Sure.
So I'll just forward it to you.
That'd be great. I appreciate that.
Okay, is it COO?
Yep.
Foreclosure.org?
No, at Foreclosurepedia, just like the website.
And it's FORECLOSURE Pedia?
Yes, ma'am, .org.
Okay, so it's COO at foreclosurepedia.org.
It's FORECLOSUREPEDIA.org.
Okay, I have it.
And that's COO at.
COO at. Okay, I have that. I'll forward that to you.
Excellent. And I appreciate you all, and I'm going to start hitting on all these notes.
Well, let me tell you something. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
I really do.
Thank you, ma'am.
All these years, like I said, I've had this in the back of my mind and wondering, can I not stop her? Is there nothing I can do? Because, like I said, I didn't have money for an attorney, and I still don't. But I'd like to see her close down and go to work, like we have to work, or go to jail one.
Sure.
Because her kids are about grown. And I hated it, when the kids were small, I didn't want to see anything happen to their home, because they all just loved their mother. I mean, she's just real calm with them. Around them, she can sit down and do their homework, help them with their homework. She was always so calm. She's probably on something, though, because you got 5 or 6 kids and all of them needing something. You're not going to be too calm.
No. No.
So, anyway, I'll let you go, but just feel free to call.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you. It'll be in the next day or so, and you all have a good afternoon.
Well, you too. We'll be waiting for your call.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
This was recorded on the 21st of November, beginning at approximately 14:51 hours Eastern Standard Time and ending at approximately 15:46 hours Eastern Standard Time.